Good day from where you might be listening from. I want to thank God for life. I want to thank God for His grace and His mercies upon each and every one of us. It's a privilege to be here speaking to you today. I remember the word of God in John 3:16 that says, "For God so loved the world that He gave us His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish but have everlasting life." So it's a privilege for each and every one of us to be called sons of God today and to be redeemed and saved by Jesus Christ. I also want to thank Pastor Bella for this opportunity to use my experience, my life, as a testimony to others, and also to bless the souls of men and also encourage people, especially the young ones, on the mercies of God and the grace of God upon mankind. Before I go in, I just want to thank God. I just want to worship God and appreciate Him. I want to acknowledge His goodness upon my life. I want to acknowledge His leading, His guidance, His provision, His help. God has been faithful to me, faithful to you listening. God has been kind. God has been good. When we look at what God has done for us, we don't deserve the love of God. We have not done anything. The Bible says, "Herein is love, that Christ first loved us while we were yet sinners. And then He gave Himself up as a sacrifice for us." Even in our mess and our sins and in everything that we have done to displease Him, He still had so much faith and hope. Lord, I remember when I read John 3:16, and every time I read that place, it opens my eye to understand that you are faithful. It opens my eye to see that God is merciful. The Bible says, "God so loved us that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him will not perish but have everlasting life." That means that for God to sacrifice His Son, He had so much faith, He had so much trust and belief that if He makes this sacrifice, there's going to be a return. That means there are going to definitely be people that will turn to Him. He made a sacrifice as an investment upon mankind, looking for harvest, that the souls of men will be saved and transformed into the kingdom of His dear Son, that we will not perish but we would have life. Now we are not like any other man living, but we are men that know that there is a place for us. He says, "I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you might be there." So we are most privileged to be alive and to know God and to be called sons of God, just because of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross, and because we believe, we accept the Lordship of Christ, we accept Him as our Savior. Lord, we thank you. Jesus, we are grateful for everything you suffered for us on the cross. We are grateful to you, Father, for sending your Son. Holy Spirit of God, we thank you for opening our eyes to the truth, because no man can say Jesus is the Son of God except by the Holy Spirit. So Lord, we thank you for the privilege. Be thou exalted in Jesus' name. So it's a story of joy. It's a story of gladness. The Bible says we should come before Him with gladness, worship Him with joy in our hearts. We should know that He is God and He's the rewarder of those that seek Him. I'm just so happy right now sharing my testimony and my story with you all listening, of how God in His power was able to transform my life from story to glory. I'm just so happy for this privilege, and I pray that as you listen, you are going to be blessed, and this will be a message that you can also share to people in order to benefit them and to make them understand the power of God and the goodness of God, and what Christ did on the cross, how he lived, how he died, how he resurrected, and how he gave us to share of the glory of God, and now we can be in the image of God and possess everything that God has for us as mankind. We are meant to understand that salvation is the total package. Salvation is the beginning of the journey for every believer. So my journey has begun, and I believe that if you are listening to me and you are saved, your journey also has begun. But if you are listening and you have not been saved, I believe that with this testimony and my story and all that I'm going to be saying today, you will definitely open your heart to receive Christ today, because it is the best decision you can ever make. And this is where your purpose, your destiny, everything about your life springs forth from the day you accept Christ. Okay, straight down to my story. I am Super Sam. In Godman Initiative, we have different mantles, and by the grace of God, I bear the mantle of a super Godman who helps our leader, Pastor Bella, in the ministry by posting and doing some other acts of service for God on the platform. So I will go by the name Super Sam. I'm a child of a pastor. I was born and bred under active ministry of my father. So I've always been in the church, and I've heard about God. I had this mindset that, okay, there is a God, but I never came to understand or to have an encounter with him. I remember even when I was younger, there was this day that we were having a devotion at home when I was still a child though, and then my dad asked me, he said, "Son, are you willing to give your life to Christ?" And he asked my sister also, and then my sister said yes, and she gave her life to Christ. And that day I told him no, and I don't know how he would have felt as a father hearing his small son saying no, that he does not want to accept Christ. But he didn't even complain, and I don't know why up till now, because I expected him to have said something about that, but he never did. And he kept on praying for me, kept on hoping that one day I would open my arms to Christ. But he didn't leave me the way I was. He always brought up the opportunity for me to receive Christ. But then I had no knowledge of who God was for myself. I only heard teachings. I only attended church services. I only participated in every other thing as activities, but there was no real encounter with God. So along the line, growing up, I was a shy person, never really related with crowd. I was just in my own space. And then I grew up. I never knew that there was a destiny in me. There was something in me that God wanted to make manifest upon the earth, and that there was a plan for my life. So I just kept on wondering. And then the devil knew who I was to be and brought up different influences around my life, even right from my tender age. While I was in primary school, I saw myself with friends who taught me what stealing was. Started from stealing. We stole money from some of our classmates, did so many wrong things. We were restless, we were reckless as children that we were then. And then even at home, stealing my dad's money, stealing church money also. Some other things related to that aspect, but I knew that there was never a light within me. So from small, my life was going in the wrong direction. Also adding to the fact that was in primary school though. That was in primary school. And then coming up, the devil knew that he had to lock me down totally. And then getting to secondary school, there were many more influences. Although my parents always taught me the right things, they were never the fault of any mistake I made, but the choices that I made. So I don't blame anyone for the mistakes I've made in life, but I blame myself. And I thank God it's not so anymore. So coming down to secondary school, meeting more friends and more peer pressure. The peer pressure increased. So we went into things like having relationship with ladies. The urges started coming up as a male that I am, and seeing ladies around me and seeing what some of my friends do. I started getting involved with girls, and it grew. Stealing was still part of it then. On many occasions I was caught, I was flogged, but it never changed. So in secondary school it continued, and then I remember that all we did then was to go around with girls, and that was a negative introduction. Although some of my friends right from secondary school had already started this thing they call cyber crime, will I call it fraud, which is Yahoo back then. So it's not a new thing to most of us now, because we knew back then that this was something that people were actually doing. Some of them were into gambling then, some of them were into womanizing, some of them were into drinking and smoking, but I was not part of them then, because I always remembered I was in my father's house, and I was a church boy. Let me use that word. I was a church boy, but not with an encounter with Jesus Christ. So I did those things I did then without the knowledge of who Christ was. And then now coming up to the stage of the university level, it increased. Even some of my friends in church were influences upon me, because I later began to gamble as a result of seeking to have money and get some of the things that most of my friends had. A friend of mine introduced me to gambling. A friend in the church introduced me to gambling. So I began to gamble, and that was the period where I was getting into the university. And then I remember vividly that right from small, I was always close to girls. I was never a guy type, and then girls were around my life, so I knew that it was going to be a major challenge for me, because we know what can happen from that. So moving on to the university, I met more influences. I had various relationships that started and broke. They were not godly relationships, and it brought about negative results in my life. Also, pornography was something that came up to me in my secondary school days. We started watching pornography, the likes of masturbation came in while in the university. Watch pornography, masturbate, look for ladies that we can practice what we have watched upon. So there are many things that happened that brought out the negative side of me. I started joining gangs. I don't know if you are aware, gangs, like guys around me joining gangs and causing havoc, doing things all around, making trouble, but not cults, just gangs, boys around. And it got serious to the point where gambling was now part of my blood. It was like a thing related to my blood, that every money that comes into my account, I use it to gamble. My life was messed up. I had girls around me. It was a pain. It was a pain. I knew that what I was doing was not the right thing. I always had it in mind that this was not who I was meant to be, but I could not help myself. Like Paul said in the Bible, I see myself doing the wrong things, although I want to do the right things. So that was my story. And then I fought hard every time to always connect to this God that I had heard. At least I had the background. So for every parent listening, you might need to train up your child in the way you should go, which is very important, because that background will definitely speak. And then your altar. I remember late in the night, my dad would always come to my room while I was young, put his hand on my head and speak in tongues. Like then I was wondering, I was saying, what is this man doing? what was my dad actually doing then? But it was laying a foundation for my life that no matter how far I ran away, I was always going to come back because I am a child of destiny. So those were the things that helped me. And then my sister too, she knew some of the things that I was into, and then she was praying for me. And she would always expose me once in a while, like in the aspect of gambling. There was this time she saw gambling papers and tickets in my wardrobe, and then she revealed it to my parents, and my parents called me and warned me. So there was a fear for my parents, but there was no life to actually live righteous. There was no life. So I stopped stealing when I was flogged so hard by my father when I stole church money. When he got to know that I was stealing church money, he beat the living hell out of my life. And then I made a decision. That was when I knew that every man, even in his weakest state, even if you think you cannot stop something or a habit, when you make a decision, it stands. And your decision is like your resolve. You resolve never to do this thing again, and then you stop doing it. So I resolved within myself that I was going to stop stealing. So I became a honest person, but I lost trust. My parents never trusted me. They can't keep money in the parlor. They can't reveal things to me. If my dad keeps money in the parlor and then he goes to sleep, in the middle of the night, if he remembers that there's money on the table, it got so bad that he will stand up, even no matter how deep the sleep was, to come and take away the money from the parlor, because he knows that there is a child that can go there to take it. So it was a pain it was a tongue in my flesh, because I knew that within myself I had already made the decision never to steal again, but there was no trust. The love reduced to a point. They were tired and fed up of me. It got to that point. I never listened. Not like I was really stubborn, but most times I don't listen to whatever they tell me. I shout at my mom. I did so many things back then which I can't really remember totally, but that was just the starting point. Now getting to the university was the major point where the devil knew I was free. There was now liberty in university because my parents are no longer there. This covering and protection and this fear of being around parents was reduced, and then I got myself back into ladies. I was in relationships, and then they kept on breaking until the point where I just decided to stand alone, and I gave up on ladies, and I built up friendship with some guys around me. So I later decided to open my arms back to relationship, and then there was this girl that I asked out, and then she said no. So because of that, most of my friends were already drinkers and they were smokers. So I found myself drinking, but I never smoked. I just found myself drinking, and then a point came because of what happened, the breakup and the pain in my heart. I told them. They were surprised that day. We were just in the room, and then they were drinking. We were all drinking, and then we were dancing, listening to worldly music, dancing up and down. And I told them, I said, please, where do they sell that stuff? I need it now. They were asking me what. I said, smoke. So they were like, you that you don't smoke, what came over you that you're asking? And I got so serious. I took my money. I told them, take me there. And then the first time, it was a cigar. I took it, and I was asking. I said, what is this? This thing does not make anybody high. But I never knew that it was just a first experience. So they now introduced me to what they call weed, SK, many other things. They call some Malikush. I can't remember the names vividly. So those things, we began to smoke them, and they were like weed. And it got us high to the point where there was so much confidence now to approach women, do some certain things because of the influence of these things that we were taking. So we were living life recklessly. And I remember when I got to school in my 100 level days, my GP was high, very high. And then when it was the second year, when some of these influences started, I began to drop. My grades started dropping. So for any parent listening, when you notice the grades of your children are dropping, there are things to it. It might not be that they are being influenced, but they might be going through one thing or the other that is making their grades drop. So I encourage parents to be sensitive and to listen to their children and to love them. Don't put so much fear into your children that they can't open up to talk to you, but put enough of encouragement and love into them that they can approach you to tell you anything going on around their life. Okay, so back to the story. I started dropping in my grades and I didn't even care about them because of the influence of the alcohol I was taking and the smoke I was smoking. So I got deep into gambling. I started even doing fraud with gambling or selling fake games to people. I will tell them that this thing is 100% assurance that you are going to win this game, and then I will collect money from them, and if the game comes, fine. If it does not come, I will delete their contact. So it was like I was scamming them, and I was also into gambling also. It got to a point where I was using the whole of my feeding money to gamble. Sometimes I will win, I'll take girls out, I'll take some of my guys out, change my clothes, get phones, do things the way I wanted. So that was my story actually. And I still kept on masturbating and watching pornography all the same. So there was this day that I went to gamble, and I gambled also with my transport fare. And the distance was so far because I would go to a far distance to gamble so that people will not see me. Even while I was at home with my parents, I would enter by go to a far distance so that they will not see me. They will not say pastor's child is gambling. You understand? Because of church members and some of these other things around my life. So I knew I was messed up, and I was looking for a way out because in the in-depth of my heart, I knew that I was not satisfied with the life I was living, but I never knew the way out. So I just kept up with some of the things I was doing. And then, like I said, I would take bike, go to a very far distance, motorcycle, go to a very far distance to gamble. And then that day, I spent my transport and then I sat down. Some of this, it happened on various occasions, not just one. I even met some married men that came there with their money for business. Some of them, their children's school fees. Even there was this story I heard of a man that came there with the money he wanted to use for his wedding, and he only planned to double the money, and they swallowed his money up. So things like that. So I sat down that day, and sometimes I would beg people for money to go back home, and then I would go ahead to drink gari or any other. I might even go hungry just because I needed to gamble. So it was now part of me. It consumed me, that as money is coming, there is nothing. I don't have a life anymore. And then I had friends around me also that were into it. So that was another encouragement for me, that okay, we suffer together. Anything that's going on, we hold ourselves together. So we were more into this brotherhood thing. And then more influences started coming, and I was going deeper. I got calls from some guys in school who were into cultism. They saw me and they were like, guy, I love the way you are tall. I love your physique. I want you to join us. You understand? So in various ways, I would have gone deeper, but I held myself that I was never going to join cults, even if I was. But in one way or the other, anytime I try to come to God, anytime I actually tell God that, okay, God, I want to stop what I'm doing, and I change, when I'm coming back into another aspect, because it started only as stealing and lying. It went further into pornography, into masturbation, went further into drinking, went further into smoking, went further into gambling. So I saw that it was increasing. For every time that I said no, I was going to stop, then it came hotter, like as if it was a battle for me never to come to Christ. Sometimes every altar call they made, I was always coming out. And then in myself, I was asking, I said, will people not even be asking that pastor's son every time they are making altar call? I will come out. Sometimes I will not come out. And the Spirit of God will be disturbing me so much to come out. But I'll be fighting it that no, I'm not coming out. Just because I know that I am living a life of sin and I know that I can't stop it. Sometimes I would be so tired. There was this day that I got fed up and I told God, I'm coming here tomorrow to meet you so that we will talk and you will settle me and help my life. And I told myself that I was not going to masturbate. And then it got to the evening. In the evening, it was like as if the urge was so strong on me and I could not help myself. So when I did when I eased myself, it was like I could not approach God again. I felt condemned. So the next day, I didn't even bother to go where I told God I was going to meet him. But finally, my redemption came when I got fed up. It was as a result of some of the things that happened around my life, and I almost made the worst mistake of my life. And then I knew that it was time for me to give up on everything and then come to Christ. I even had influences of some of the guys around me already doing this cyber crime. They introduced me to it. I downloaded the apps. I was already onto it, scamming some of these white men abroad. And then when I was about to receive, although I never collected anything, it was just at the beginning of it that God knew that, okay, he's going into cybercrime. This might be the end of it, where this guy might definitely, they call it Yahoo Plus, maybe later in life, or because of failure to get what I want, I might go ahead to plus it. Because you can never say that there are some things that you won't do. You might find yourself not doing it now, but a time will come when the influence is so strong. Because even some of my friends, while we were gambling, they already brought the idea that let's visit a herbalist and let them do a kind of concoction for us or a charm that we will be able to see the games and know what they will play, so that we can always pick the right choice every time and continue making money. They went, but I didn't go because I knew where I was coming from. That's why I'm saying that the foundation is very strong. When a child knows where he's coming from, he rejects some of the things that are brought to him. Even if he can't reject all, there are some deep things that he won't go to because he has the fear and the understanding. So I limited myself not to go because I knew who I was. And then I knew the sacrifice of my parents. I always kept on remembering what my father had suffered, how he had labored for me. And I knew that even I myself, I did not want the life I was living, but I wanted to serve God, but I never knew how. So finally, I came to Christ. How did it happen? When they introduced me to this thing called Yahoo fraud, I got into it, and then a day just came when my dad spoke to me in a morning devotion. It was like God already ordained that day. And then he told me the story of my life, the history of my life, how I have messed up severally, how he was getting tired of me. Even the look on my mom's face that morning in the devotion, I knew that this woman too was tired of me. I was like the black sheep of the house. Everything was going fine, but I was the one that was wrong. I was wrong. I was the negative point in the house. And then I was also giving access to the devil to penetrate our family. So I heard him say all he had to say that morning. And within my soul, I was in tears. And it happened to be that during those periods, I resolved within my heart that with everything that has happened in my life, I was set to give up. I was set to give up on myself and then know this God that they have been talking about. Although I did not know how to go and meet God, I did not even know how to approach God, but I knew that I was tired. And then I cried. Okay, a point came where I started listening to messages. There was this friend of ours a family friend that came around, and she played one message, and I heard it, and the message blessed me, and I was surprised. And then I went over to her, asked her to send some other messages to me, audio messages from Apostle Orokpo. Yeah, Apostle Michael Orokpo. So when I listened to those messages, I decided to lock up myself. But before then, I'd actually gone out. I think on my birthday on the 5th of May, I decided to go out, and then I talked to God. I told God I'm tired of the life I'm living, and I told him I've heard of him since when I was young, and I gave my life to him totally. Although I've given my life to him several times, there was even a time when I was young and I asked my dad, I said, if somebody gives his life to Christ, does that mean that the person must continue to give his life to Christ every time? And then he told me no. He said, once you give your life to Christ in sincerity, is that you accept Christ as your Lord and your Savior, and you begin to obey his commandments. And then if you make a mistake, you just ask for mercy, that God should cleanse you of every unrighteousness. Okay, so I got fed up on asking God to come into my life. But I knew that all those times I was asking, I was not sincere, or I was willing to, but I find myself falling back to sin. So at this point, I made this decision, and there was a resolve. I always had the mindset that one day God will save me. I did not know that I was the one that was going to meet God, although God also wanted to come to me, but he was waiting for me to open my mouth to truly accept him from the depth of my heart. So I spoke that day, and I looked to the sky, and I told God, it's time. Help me. I gave my life to him. I surrendered everything to him. And then I saw that there was this power to stop the things I was doing. There was this power to stop masturbating. There was this power to stop every bad thing I was doing. And I deleted everything from my phone. I deleted some contacts. And then, like I said, I got messages. I started listening to messages. And then there was a time where I saw that the people around my life were not adding value to me. And then I switched off from the internet for about a week. And then the only thing I was doing with my phone, I was fasting and praying in those periods. The only thing I was doing with my phone was to listen to songs and also messages. And I was on the altar. I was praying. I started downloading some videos on YouTube that helped me, both motivational videos, inspirational videos, Christian videos. I just wanted a better version of myself because I was tired. And then I saw that I began to change. There was now power to do the right things. And then, although till today my dad never made mention of it to me, but my sister told me, I started doing everything well. I was obedient. I was working on myself. They saw the changes. And then he asked, I was always praying. Me that I could not fast before, I could not pray before, I was always on the altar, to the point that my mom was begging me to stop fasting and asking me to stay at home. That why am I doing all the things? So parents, in case you see changes in your children, allow them, especially when it's good things, because you don't know how the Spirit of God might be dealing with them. So do not allow your emotions to affect what God is doing. It's not as if she actually stopped me from doing anything, but if I had listened to some of the things she was saying out of her own pity for me, I would have not become who I am today. So I kept on praying, kept on working on myself, and then I encountered God. God spoke to me. I heard the voice of God clearly, and I knew that my life had changed. And God told me about myself, told me about what He wants me to do on the altar. And then my dad asked my sister, and he said, "Is Samuel doing all these things to try and please me? Like, is he doing it to deceive us, or is he doing it to show you the point it had gotten to, that even my parents were thinking that there is no way that I can ever, although they had the hope, but when they started seeing it, they were not sure of what was going on. And then they were like, it was what they have been praying for was actually coming to pass, and they could not understand it. But within me, I knew that things were changing in my life. And then I was a happier man. I started living life. I blocked all contact with those guys I was working with, because you have to come out from among them. You cannot be there and claim, because I actually repented. There was a time I repented. I went back to school, and then I continued staying with those same set of guys. And I saw that although I was reading the Bible and trying my best to stay clear from them, but I fell back to sin. And it was because on a certain day they introduced me to a certain party. They asked me to come to that party. And I knew that this life that I'm living now, it's a life of God. I can't. But I attended that party, and then I went ahead to smoke and drink. And then I was feeling condemned, and I started doing those things I was doing again. So now this transformation that happened was the final transformation, and this was what sealed my salvation in Christ. So on the altar was where God gave me power to be called the Son of God, and he put his spirit in me, started speaking in tongues with the evidence, as an evidence of receiving the Spirit of God. I was filled with the Spirit of God. And then I asked God to lead me to, there was a certain time I asked God to lead me to my spiritual family, a place where I can be a son, a place where I can serve. And then one of the places God led me to was God-Man Initiative. And ever since, even at the inception, I was part of the people that left the platform because of a little misunderstanding on what the name of the initiative actually meant then. And then God's servant, Pastor Bella, came to my DM, and I was so humbled that a woman with so much virtue and personality would come into my DM to talk to me and advise me to come back to the group. So I came back. I never knew that what I prayed for was where I was sent, but in a way the devil wanted to send me away. And then when I came back to the platform, I saw that within a short period of time, I opened up to Pastor Bella, and what she did was that she encouraged me. Every sinner out there is not looking for condemnation. They already know they are condemned, because I was there. It's not as if I was not there. I was in it. So I knew that I wanted to come out, but I was not looking for someone to tell me that because of what you are doing, you will go to hell. I was looking for someone to help me, but I couldn't find anybody. There was nobody that would come to me and encourage me. Although there were many believers around, people who claimed to be Christians, but there was no encouragement. Nobody actually knew what I was going through within me. So although I don't blame anybody, like I said, I blame myself, because if I had actually made the right choices on time, but I still thank God for most of the things I went through, which has made me a better person today. And I'll be able to speak to people also who are going through the same thing. Everything we are ever going through, or things that we have been through, it's always going to be a testimony, because we are definitely going to come out from it. There are stages in life. So if you feel that where you are now is not the best place you want to be, I sincerely tell you the truth that you can find yourself in the best place if you resolve within yourself to make a decision that you want to come out of where you are. It's so powerful that even the devil knows that if a man makes a decision, he can achieve it. When we look at the story of the Tower of Babel, men were in one accord, and they had a resolve to build a tower. And then God also knew that if he left these people with their will and their resolve, they were going to achieve what they had in mind. So God had to come and scatter the language of men in order for them not to achieve it. So I'm telling you now that if you are seeing anything wrong going on in your life and you don't want it to be so, you have the power. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so it is. Even in the weakest state of a man has the ability to make a choice. When I learned this, I started making choices, and I stand by what I choose. God has said something concerning my life. The devil also has his own choice for my life. The Bible says in Isaiah 53 verse 1, it says, "Who has believed our reports, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed?" So now you can either believe the report of God, or you can believe the lies of the devil. Is constantly speaking into your mind. But now you also have a choice. That choice is who you choose to believe. Do you choose to believe in God, or you choose to believe in the devil, or you choose to believe in everything that is displayed around your life? Some people actually use their background as excuses of why they cannot come to Christ because of the sufferings they are going through. I have heard people say that while they were coming to Christ, their parents told them that if they choose Christ, they were not going to stay under their roof. I've seen people abandon their homes, abandon everything that they have, even to the point of not having food to eat just because of Jesus Christ. And then he said in his word that anything we forsake to accept him, we are going to receive so much more than what we think we have lost. So I encourage you to open your arms to Christ. My story is a testimony for you to understand that no matter how far you have gone, I was locked up in so many things. If I list them, they are more than 7. Drinking, smoking, masturbating, pornography. Yes, masturbating, womanizing, cyber fraud, gambling, and stealing, so many more. So I believe strongly that you can come out of where you are, and then there is a power that God has given to us. Once we accept him, there is this power, like I said, the power that came upon me to do the right things. I just saw myself being free. There was this freedom to do the right things. But the devil fought me. That's one thing you must recognize. For every victory, there is a fight. So you must know that there is a battle that you will go through. And then what God told me was that I should fight with the word of God. That I had to know the word of God. And then he put his word in my heart. That for every battle that the devil threw to me, I was able to fight because I knew the truth. And the truth always set me free. So for everyone seeking redemption, all you need to do is go to Christ and let God work on you. You might need to do things you have never done before to see results you have never seen before. Because I actually did some things then, but I saw myself falling back in the same place until I made the choice of living where I was. I had to change my environment. I had to change my friends. I had to change my mindset. Everything about me had to change because there was a new life. So I knew that I could no longer live unto myself, but to live unto him who died for me and rose again. So this was my transformational story, and I'm really thankful to God for everything that has happened. This was how I escaped and I met God. Now, what people said and how they reacted when people saw the changes that happened around my life. My family, it was to them like a surprise, like I said earlier, but they were happy. People around me also, they saw that the timid person they knew before is no longer the timid person they know. They saw the changes. Even some of my friends, when I started speaking to them, they were wondering because they knew who I was. And now seeing the new me, they were wondering. And they were surprised. But I told them that it can only be by God. And then I saw the need in them also. I saw the desire in them also to come out of where they were, where they are actually, and come to Christ. But they did not know how. So I kept on praying for them. Until now, I still pray for them. And sometimes when I have the opportunity to talk to them and tell them the truth, I tell them the truth in love, not by condemning them. Even if they have not escaped up till now, I still believe that a certain time will come when they will find Christ. Now, I want to honor everyone that helped me. I first honor my family. I honor God first for giving me the privilege to come out of darkness. I honor my family, the labor that my parents labored for me and all of my family members. I honor my friends. I honor ministers of God who, through their teachings, I have been able to become a better version of myself. I honor Pastor Bella because she is part of my story. I can never ever remove her from any story I'm telling, because she, just that word of encouragement and the show of love which she actually rendered towards me was what captivated my heart, that there was somebody that believed in me and someone that loved me. I honor all the mentors around me, Pastor Os. I honor my friends, everyone around me. So who I am now, I am a child of God now. I'm a lead pastor in my campus fellowship. I am a super God man on GMI. By the grace of God, I'm everything God has said I am. I'm the light of the world, the city set on a hill. I cannot be hidden. So who I will be, according to what God has revealed to me, I am a minister of God. And by the special grace of God, God is leading me into rest, into the place where He wants me to be. So I believe that you are going to hear so much about me in the future, because I know what God has said and I know where God is taking me, and I'm not afraid of what the devil can do, because yes, he will try, but he has failed. For him to fail in not capturing me with everything that has happened to me, then I believe that he will also fail in every of his schemes. He says they can plan, but they shall not prevail. So I encourage you, if you have not accepted Christ, let me use this privilege to lead you into prayers. And as you believe these prayers, as I believed and I resolved within my heart, I believe strongly that you will receive power and you will be able to bear the name Christ. You will be Christ-like. You will live like Christ. And your story will marvel others. Your life will change from story to glory. So say with me, Lord, I accept you as my Lord and Savior. I ask you to come into my life. I surrender my soul to you. I surrender my will to you. I ask that you come and transform my life. I ask that you will transform my life. I ask that by your redemptive power, you will turn my life around. I ask, oh God, that you will come and take rest in my heart. As you said in your word, you said you stand at the door knocking, and anyone that opens unto you, you will come in. Lord, I ask you to come into my life. Give me power to be called the Son of God. Give me power to overcome everything that I have gone through, and let your glory come upon my life. For in Jesus' most wonderful name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for taking out this time. I pray that God will minister to you and bless you and bring about the next level upon your life. The time has come for the true worshippers to rise, and I believe that you are part and parcel of what God will be doing. There is something that God is doing in this time, and you are a laborer in his vineyard. Just stay with God and believe that He will bring the best out of you. God bless you. I love you and I appreciate you. Father, we thank you for your teaching. Thank you for speaking to us. Be thou exalted and let your name be glorified. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.